Wars collecting with the Science Fiction Coalition. My name is Shawn A. I am the Vice President of Sci-Fi Co. From San Diego. Today we have some guests here that we're going to be talking about collecting Star Wars. I'll let them introduce themselves one by one, and we'll start here with Shawn.
Hello, I'm Shawn Mullen, and I am the founder of the Science Fiction Coalition, and I will be talking about vintage collecting.
Hi, I'm David Newhausel. I'm a member of the Sci-Fi Coalition. My specialty in collecting is Star Wars trading cards.
Hi, I'm Shaylor. My specialty is the Black Series, 6-inch line.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming and joining us today. Thank you guys for coming out and joining me on this panel. It'd be odd with me just standing up here talking to a bunch of people. So, as I can tell, you guys are all Star Wars fans, as we are too. One of my fondest memories of starting collecting was going to KB Toys back in the 80s with my mom, getting a Luke Skywalker figure from New Hope. And that kind of started it all for me, and it's been no turning back since then. What got you guys into collecting Star Wars? Just from figures to cards to movies to all that?
Well, I was 7 years old on opening day on May 25th, 1977, so I know I don't look that old. But, so I was right at that age when Star Wars exploded, and I grew up collecting, the comics, the Star Wars cards, the action figures, the bedding, the underoos, so on and so forth. So, and at the age of 7, Star Wars changed my life. So, yeah, I mean, I've been a fan for 40 years, and I still collected in the 90s and recent, but my focus was to get back to vintage stuff. And my friends would say, well, you're trying to get back your childhood, and but when I grew up, my parents didn't have a lot of money, so I wasn't getting back my childhood. I was, for the first time, really getting the figures. I mean, I had a handful, like 2 or 3, and I remember, going to my friend's house, they said, oh, we're gonna play, Star Wars. I'm like, okay, I'll bring my 2 action figures, and my friends would say, you can leave those there. I got everything, just come over. So, as an adult, being responsible and having a job, I was able to get back to collecting. And the cool part was, I started, I call it recollecting, and I started in like 1990, and that was during the dark years. Because vintage collecting started in 77, and it died off in 85, about 2 years after Return of the Jedi. And for 10 years, you didn't really have that much coming out from 85 to 95. And so in 1990, I was like, I was 20 years old, and I'm like, I need a hobby, and instead of, buying beer. So I needed something to show, from my money instead of, wasting it. So I decided to go back collecting Star Wars. And my first San Diego Comic-Con was in 1992. And I don't know how many people have been to San Diego Comic-Con. Raise your hand. Okay, 90% of you. In 1992 was actually before the expansion. And so it was only Hall A, B, and C. There was no D, E, F, G, H. And even then, my first, and back then, you just walked up to the pavilion, you signed your registration, they gave you your badge, and you just walked right in. And I remember my first step on the floor, even though it was just half the size, than what it is now, I was blown away and overwhelmed. I was like, oh my God, because I never really went to a Comic-Con or any kind of a pop culture con. I went to some like sports card shows, but nothing like this. And there was Star Wars everywhere. And they had the vintage stuff, and they were fairly cheap. Like you could still get the carded figures, like the first line of Star Wars, like $50, $100. But back then, you know, being 20 years old, I'm like, man, that's a lot of money for a toy. But you know, Empire Strikes Back figures on card were like $20, $30, and Return of the Jedi was like $10, $15. So that's how I started. I started getting the figures, $20, $30 here and there, and then all of a sudden, you know, in the mid '90s, '95, the Star Wars toys got reintroduced. And do you have the footage of the Han Solo?
Yes.
Now, if you remember in '85, when the Star Wars toys were dying off, Kenner tried to shake up the toy line. So they changed it from Return of the Jedi cards to, they repackaged them to Power of the Force. And this was the original Power of the Force line. So, you know, they tried to attract people to buy the toys again. So they added the coins on the package. And they had 17 new figures, but the 17th figure was really rare, but in the United States was 16 new figures. And so they were trying to, you know, they added new figures like the Luke Skywalker Stormtrooper with the removable helmet. And they were going to add a second wave of the Power Force figures, but the excitement, you know, changing it just didn't do the sales. It was just dying off, so Kenner just pulled the plug. And there were unproduced cards that didn't have the figures on them, the proof cards. I mean, if you could find one of those for $500 right now, that would be a good price. But, you know, they don't even have the figures on them. There were unproduced figures. And one of the figures that was going to be in the second wave was the Han Solo Stormtrooper with the removable helmet, because in their first wave they had the Luke Skywalker one, but they never produced it. They didn't even get to the card. And so when they reintroduced the figures in '95, everybody remembers that, right? The Power of the Force 2 is called, and they were on the orange cards with the Darth Vader, you know, face on the cards. Well, before they reintroduced that to the stores, they had a promo with General Mills cereal, and that promo was get the action figure you were supposed to get. Well, it didn't say that in the commercial, but it was to get the Han Solo figure they never produced. So they relaunched the Power of the Force figures with the new Han Solo removable helmet that they never did 10 years ago. So that's how they continued it, because that was the next planned figure they were going to do. So after the 10-year gap, that's how they reintroduced the figures, which they didn't card that figure for like another 10 years. But they sent it in a mailer box. If you bought like, you know, Trix or Fruit Loops and you sent the proof of purchase, you got the Han Solo Stormtrooper. And at that time, at the like San Diego Comic-Con, they were selling like $40, $50, you know, the second market. Who remembers the Han Solo male? Yeah.
For those of you that don't, we actually have the commercial for it. Do you want to play that real quick, Richard, so you guys know what we're talking about?
Star Wars is in your hand. It's an exclusive counteraction. Disguised as a stormtrooper with 2 groups from Kellogg's Fruit Loop cereal. May the Force be with you.
Nice.
So yeah. Who remembers that commercial from when they were a kid? I do. How many of you mailed away for that when you were a kid? I did. How many of you actually got it? Who still has it? All right.
I didn't get a helmet with it though.